What is up? I've been wanting to make an educational video about phenibut for a really long time, and at long last, here it is. So, let's start with the disclaimers. I am not a doctor. This is not intended to be medical advice. I have many years of experience with this substance, and I'm just trying to pass on that experience to anyone else who's looking to learn from it. Phenibut is classified as a gabapentinoid. So it's GABAergic. That means that it acts on the GABA system in your brain. In Russia and some of the Eastern Bloc countries, it's a prescription drug known as Nufen. Because it's GABAergic, and as with all other GABAergics, you don't want to combine GABAergic substances together. Like, you shouldn't combine this with alcohol or benzos or anything like that. And it is it's closely related to drugs that are prescription drugs in the US. I'm in the United States, so some of this stuff is going to be from that perspective, but it's related to gabapentin, baclofen, and pregabalin, which are all prescription drugs in the US. And it acts kind of similarly. I'm big on harm reduction. I'm going to do this kind of backwards, but I'm really big on harm reduction and education, so I'm going to go over the dosage and stuff, and then I'll get into kind of what is it, all that. But so according to the Psychonaut Wiki, which is a pretty good website, I'm going to go over the dosages. It considers the threshold dosage, which is like, you're just kind of getting the effects. You can just barely feel it at a quarter of a gram, 0.25 grams. Light, half a gram to 1 gram. Common, 1 gram to 2 grams. Strong, 2 to 3.5 grams. And heavy, 3.5 grams plus. Strong and heavy, for me, strong would be like 1.5 grams. I think those strong and heavy dosages just seem really crazy to me. And you would only go that high if you're like not going to drive, and maybe you're going to a rave or something, and you want to have a little added boost and have a little more fun as an alcohol alternative. The half-life is 5.3 hours according to a couple different websites. Now, relevant to that, a come up can be around 3 hours, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on your individual body chemistry. So I couldn't find exactly, but I would assume that the half-life is after 5.3 hours, your blood levels will be half of what they were at the start. And I would assume that half-life is 5.3 hours after it's fully into your system. So in other words, 5.3 hours plus 3 hours. So it would be, 8 hours and change. The duration, and also a side note, if anyone's curious, the come up for rectal administration is 30 minutes. Never tried it that way, but in case you were wondering, the duration can be 15 to 24 hours. So it lasts a very long time. And that's a great reason to start small. And I'm probably going to say this a couple times. Start small. Figure out how your body responds to this. As with pretty much all other GABAergic substances, as far as I know, it is physically addictive and psychologically addictive. With daily use, if you all of a sudden stop, you can go through withdrawals, which will be very similar to benzos being like Xanax, Klonopin, those kind of things. Alcohol, they'll be very similar to those types of withdrawals, which I believe are the only withdrawals that you can die from. So I wanted to get all that out of the way, because in the US, this is sold as a supplement, but do not take that to mean that it's safe. And it is safe if you use it properly. Anything is safe if you use it responsibly, but that it's a serious substance, and anybody who wants to try it needs to be aware of that. So what is it? It was first synthesized in the Soviet Union sometime in the 60s, or maybe like 1959. interesting anecdote, they used to send it up with cosmonauts, and the reason for that is because it kills anxiety without, at normal dosages, without really affecting motor control, like you know, coordination and stuff like that. Today, it's a prescription drug in Russia and some of the old Soviet, Eastern Bloc countries like Latvia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan. But as I said, in the U.S., it's legal. It's sold as a supplement, but it's not FDA approved. So, as I said before, it's GABAergic. It is actually, and all of the gabapentinoids are analogs of the GABA molecule, which basically means, if you know what GABA is, it's the neurotransmitter in your brain that's kind of known as the brakes for your brain. It's like your body's natural anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. And this is basically a synthetic version of that. And if you're curious, the chemical name for GABA is aminobutyric acid. The chemical name for phenibut is aminophenylbutyric acid. So basically, it's GABA with a phenyl group added onto the molecule, if you're interested in chemistry at all. Something really interesting, and something that gave me insight into the effects that it gives me at low doses, phenibut raises your dopamine levels as well. And that's the reason why one of the effects is that it's weirdly stimulating and anxiolytic, meaning anti-anxiety. So it kills your anxiety, relaxes you, but at the same time it can give you energy and make you, at least that's what it does for me. It's like a great supplement for like before the gym. And another interesting little bit of information, the pharmaceutical uses in the countries where it's a pharmaceutical drug, on label, it's prescribed for anxiety and sleep, and off label, meaning like those are kind of the approved uses. But we do the same thing in the US, where something will be approved for a certain condition, but a doctor can still prescribe it. They call it off label for something that's not technically described in the literature, that it's designed for. And a good example of that is one of the other gabapentinoids, gabapentin, and pregabalin also. It's on label. Actually, I'm not sure about pregabalin, but gabapentin on label, it's just supposed to be for neuropathic pain, which is like nerve pain, but it's prescribed off label a lot for anxiety. So some of the off label uses for phenibut in those countries where it's a prescription drug: depression, alcoholism and alcohol withdrawal, PTSD, stuttering, and tics, which is like Tourette's type tics, like those things. And the depression is really interesting because when I'm feeling down, it actually can help with that. It kind of puts you in a more positive mindset. So now this is going to be the anecdotal, my experience with it for the rest of this, and kind of my advice, I guess. So I first discovered it around 2010. I don't remember the company. It was a black tub of like 250 grams with a yellow label. It might have been Lift Mode, but if they had, I know they're orange now, but so I took it occasionally. Didn't really do too much research, kind of varying doses. But at the time, I was having some problems, and I was looking for something to get high off of, and I was hoping it was going to be like a Xanax type thing, which it really isn't. I ran out after a few years. It lasted me a really long time. Then I never used it for a few years, and then a few years later, I remembered it. I ordered more, and I want to tell this story to tell you how important it is to do research and be accurate with your dosage. Like an idiot, I used like a spoon. I mean, I didn't fill up the entire spoon, but I just used the spoon to measure out the dosage, and I forgot about how long the come up time was, so I redosed after like a couple hours, and it ended up being a disaster. I was like, I mean, I felt great. If I had to guess, I probably took like, God, I don't know, like 4 grams, maybe more, which to me is a ridiculous dosage. But at a certain point, I was like, I remember being at the refrigerator and I was like nodding off, and I think I might have thrown up. So maybe it was even more than 4 grams, but don't do that. It inspired me to be precise, and I got a more accurate spoon, or I used a measuring spoon and kind of looked up, and then eventually I bought a milligram scale, which if you're using raw powder, get a milligram scale, um, or like Lift Mode will send these tiny little scoops and they'll tell you it'll be between like 250 and 400 milligrams. Just be precise with your dosage if you're using powder. If you're getting the pills, then just be responsible with how much you decide to take. So since then, I've gone through periods of daily use and occasional use, and I know daily use can be like a controversial thing when people are talking about phenibut, but the dosage is very important. And again, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I'm just passing along my experience. I believe daily use is okay if you keep the dose as low as possible. So going back to the dosages, it said threshold is a quarter of a gram, 0.25, 250 milligrams, basically. Light is 500 to 1,000 milligrams, 1 gram. Currently, I take it daily, and I usually take 400 milligrams, which by the standards of most people that take phenibut is really, really small. The effects are really, really subtle. But if you use it responsibly, I really feel like it has a net positive on a lot of things in my life. Another thing, I like looking at the Russian / Soviet literature and what their practices are over there. In those countries where it's a prescription drug, it's usually prescribed 250 milligrams once or twice a day. Me personally, that I told you I use about 400 milligrams currently. Once in a great while, I'll up the dose a little bit, maybe to like 600 to 800, even 900, 1 gram. But I'll only do that for one day, and then the very next day I'll go back down to the 400 milligrams. To another little anecdote about what I was saying, I watched a video today on somebody that was reviewing phenibut, and he was saying how Lift Mode you can get a 5 gram tub from Lift Mode, and he was like, 5 grams, it's so small, that's like two and a half doses. And I was like, Jesus Christ, that's like, I don't know, based on how much I take, that seems crazy to me. 2.5 grams, that's a lot. And like, he was recommending you never take it more than once or twice a week. But like I said, most people take much higher doses than me. So I think it's possible to take it daily for, to try to help with whatever you're dealing with, whatever psychological symptoms you might struggle with, if you keep the dose low. It's important to know your body and to know and learn how phenibut affects you. Again, start small. If you want to start at 250 milligrams, I'd recommend starting there and see how it affects you. Work your way up. Keep in mind that the effects can last from 15 to 24 hours. So don't redose after like 6 hours if you don't know how this substance affects you yet. Also, being an addict, I've been addicted to a couple things in my life. Self-honesty has been kind of one of the cornerstones of my personal little program. And when using a substance like this, you need to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, why are you taking this? What are you looking for? If you're looking for recreation and trying to get some recreational value out of this, that's fine. But if that's your goal, then I would recommend using this as seldomly as possible. If that's what your goal is, or if you're trying to mess with these higher doses, in that case, then yeah, only take it once or twice a week. And again, always with any substance, you always want to try to use the lowest dose possible. Don't mix things. Again, benzos like Xanax, Klonopin, alcohol, and really a lot of the GABAergics, it's bad to mix anything with them. Like mixing opiates with, that's how a lot of people die. They mix Xanax and some kind of opiates, and it's just two downers, and it's not good, and it can lead to disaster. So be safe, be responsible, know your body, know how your body reacts to the substance. I hope this was helpful. Any questions, shoot me a comment. I'll do my best to answer. And I'll catch you on the next one, guys.